Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 471, 2 Degrees of Separation. The episode begins, not with Ash, but Dawn, who was cycling down Route 202 on her bicycle with Piplup in the bike's basket. She was still over the moon about receiving Piplup from Professor Rowan last episode. She was getting pretty tired after riding her bike for so long, so she was wondering what they should do. And eventually decided on taking a little rest. So she got off her bike and ran down with Piplup to a nearby hill and sent out her Piplup, because she had been talking to it this whole time while it was still in its Pokeball. Dawn and Piplup very much enjoyed their little break as they sat leaning back on a rock and watched several clouds pass by, while Dawn talked to Piplup about being a Pokemon trainer, and she asked it what the fuck they should do once they were done relaxing. Piplup didn't answer, but Dawn eventually got an idea independently. She was going to catch a Pokemon. Another one. And Dawn told Piplup that her mother always said that catching new Pokemon was very important. So, Dawn and Piplup go searching for a Pokemon for just a few seconds when suddenly a wild Baneri popped out of the nearby grass. Dawn instantly scans the Baneri with her Pokedex to find out more about it, listening to the explanation of Baneri intently as she learned its name, while watching Baneri carefully to make sure it didn't take the chance to run the fuck away while she was looking at the Pokedex. Once the Pokedex entry was done, Dawn remembered that in order to catch a Pokemon, you had to weaken it first. That's always what her mother said. So she proceeded to tell Piplup to battle Baneri, starting with a Bubble Beam. Piplup obliges, making Dawn extremely excited that she had actually ordered a Pokemon to use a move for the first time, but the Baneri dodged the attack by jumping up, which really annoys Piplup. Regardless, Dawn told Piplup to use a peck attack on Baneri instead, although Baneri dodged this by jumping to the side. And then, Baneri uses a Dizzy Punch to defeat Piplup in one hit, making it confused and knocked out, leaving Dawn to run over to her Piplup immediately to make sure it was okay. But as she worriedly checked on it, she herself received a kick in the head when the Baneri jumped on top of her to escape, and then it ran off. After Dawn recovered from the kick to the face, she asked Piplup if it was okay, although she noticed that now, even though it had regained consciousness, it was immensely depressed and rejected at the fact that it had its first loss. So Dawn comforted Piplup, telling it that everyone makes mistakes and it was fine that it lost, and repeats herself to get her point across. Thankfully, Dawn's point does seem to get across, and she and Piplup happily hop on her bike to continue their journey. While riding, Dawn lets Piplup ride in the front basket, and she brings up the subject of Pokemon contests, asking Piplup if it would be interested in entering them. She doesn't wait for its answer before she explains that her dream was to be a top coordinator, and it would be awesome if Piplup would help her achieve that dream by participating in the contest necessary to become one. Piplup was up for it, and thrust its way into the air to show its agreement, really wanting to make its trainer happy. Dawn was happy about this, and the two continued riding, and Dawn eventually confirmed that she knew of a town called Jubilife, and they would likely have a contest there, so that's where they were going to head to. Suddenly, though, the two of them came across another Pokemon, this time a Burmy hanging from a tree branch above them. Dawn was, of course, immensely excited to see another new Pokemon and checked it on her Pokedex to learn more about it. Piplup must have sensed that Dawn wanted to capture it, and it instinctively used a Bubble Beam on the unsuspecting Burmy, causing the Burmy to fall from the tree branch, and Dawn congratulates Piplup on how awesome its attack was, but Piplup seemed worried as the Burmy gathers its leaves back around its body. Eventually, Dawn realizes that Piplup was trying to tell her to throw a Pokeball before Burmy got back up and recovered, which was signified by leaves gathering around its body. Since Burmy gathering its leaves was a sign of it recovering and basically getting its cloak back, and its cloak was how it defended itself. This Burmy specifically getting a trash cloak back, because it was a trash cloak Burmy. At first, Dawn was just impressed by the speed of Burmy, but eventually, as Piplup continued to panic, she actually threw the Pokeball. It took Dawn a while to scramble in her bag in order to get a Pokeball, though, so by the time she actually got one and was going to throw it, Burmy was already gone, having ran the fuck away once it regained its cloak. Dawn was depressed at her failure and fell to her knees in defeat while apologizing to Piplup for missing the timing on throwing the Pokeball, although Piplup pats Dawn on the arm to let her know that it didn't really mind. This gives Dawn sudden confidence as she jumps up and claims that she can make mistakes just like Piplup did, which kind of pissed Piplup off a little bit. Suddenly, though, Dawn and Piplup heard some bushes rustling nearby, and they turned to the bushes to see what was causing the rustling, only to find out that it was a Pikachu. When a Pikachu came out from the bushes, unbeknownst to Dawn, this Pikachu belonged to Ash. It turns out that when Pikachu got separated from Ash by Team Rocket, it had actually blasted off close to them, and had landed in the forest where Dawn happened to be, and it quickly collapsed while trying to get out of the bushes, injured and tired from the blast-off. Dawn checked Pikachu with her Pokedex, and noted that it was an electric type, so mentioned to herself that Piplup, which was a water type, would have a disadvantage against Pikachu. So this made Dawn hesitant to send Piplup into battle against it, but Piplup tugged on Dawn's leg, making it known that it was still up for a battle, so Dawn permitted it to battle, having it use a Bubble Beam. Dawn was amazed and shocked, though, when Pikachu, despite being exhausted, quickly responded to the Bubble Beam by using Thunderbolt to destroy the bubbles before they made contact with it. So Dawn ordered Piplup to use Peck instead, but Pikachu just used another Thunderbolt. Having seen the attack coming, a mile away, and this time Pikachu used the Thunderbolt on Piplup and Dawn's bike. Since Piplup was sent flying backward into Dawn's bike, utterly destroying it, just like what had happened to Misty and May's bikes. Pikachu remembers having destroyed Misty and May's bikes before, so it scratches its head apologetically and embarrassed at its power. But Dawn was still furious at losing her bike. She didn't understand that Pikachu was trying to apologize, and she decided to make it up for it by throwing a Pokeball, trying to catch Pikachu. The Pokeball opened and tried to pull Pikachu in, but the energy field dissipated, sending the Pokeball right back to Dawn. At first, Dawn thought that the Pokeball was defective and just didn't work, but eventually she came to the conclusion that the Pikachu must have belonged to someone else, so it couldn't have been captured. However, before Dawn could do anything else with Pikachu, it turned around and ran back into the bushes, but it was stopped by a Seviper. Pikachu tried to turn back, but it learned that it was experiencing a full-on ambush, as Dustox and Cacnea both appeared too, and Pikachu was now surrounded, while Dawn watched, wondering what the fuck was going on. Suddenly though, Meowth appears too, also surrounding Pikachu, as it taunts him, saying that this time it couldn't escape being surrounded, and leading Dawn to get extremely surprised at the prospect of a talking Meowth. She was utterly amazed by this, as she checked it out on her Pokedex. Meowth was very happy to have actually been scanned by once, as it goes up to Dawn and tells her that it was a very special Pokemon, and lists some more personal facts about itself that the Pokedex apparently neglected to mention, because it was different from a regular Meowth than the Pokedex would cover. Just then though, Jessie, James, and non-Junior and Wobbuffet run out from behind some bushes and praise Meowth for hunting down Pikachu successfully. Then though, they notice Dawn, and Jessie suggests that she, James, and Meowth should steal Dawn's stuff, and also tells Dawn to keep out of their business, because Pikachu was theirs. There could only be one Pikachu thief, them, not her. Yeah, that's right, they thought Dawn was purposely trying to steal Pikachu. Pikachu wanted to prove to Team Rocket that they would never steal it though, and shock Team Rocket with a Thunderbolt. Even though Team Rocket was in pain, they just laughed at this, because their Pokemon weren't attacked at all, so they could attack Pikachu, leaving Pikachu shocked when Seviper, Cacnea, and Dustox attacked, as per James's orders, with Seviper firing off a haze attack, Cacnea using a sandstorm, and Dustox using a poison sting. Pikachu managed to dodge all these attacks though, but not without getting even more tired than it already was in the process. And Team Rocket was able to fully recover by the time Pikachu dodged. As for Dawn, she was watching this whole scene incredibly angrily, as she wanted to help out poor Pikachu, and she was encouraged to do so by Piplup. So with that, Dawn ordered Piplup to use a Bubble Beam, which knocks Viper, Cacnea, and Dustox flying back. Then Dawn and Piplup jump in front of Pikachu to shield it from Team Rocket harming it, and asks who the fuck Team Rocket even are. So Team Rocket respond by reciting their motto to inform Dawn of who they are, with Wobbuffet and non-Junior of course joining in on the motto, although Dawn got annoyed by it and interrupted Team Rocket once, but Team Rocket just continued the motto anyways. Although, even when the motto was finished, Dawn admitted that she still didn't know who Team Rocket was, since Team Rocket had not arrived in Sinnoh before. Team Rocket didn't register this at first though, so they all fell to the ground in shock at the fact that Dawn didn't know them. But James suddenly got up and asked where they were, and Dawn explained that they were near Sanjum Town, and James asks her if Sanjum Town was in Sinnoh. Jessie asks James if he has heard of that place, and James tells her that he used to come to Sinnoh as a child before he actually joined Team Rocket. Sometimes he would go to Sinnoh with his parents when they went on business trips. Anyways, knowing that the Blastoff had still made them end up in the Sinnoh region, because previously they had thought that the Blastoff had taken them out of Sinnoh, Jessie pointed out that Team Rocket wasn't present in Sinnoh yet, so Meowth declared that they should stay in Sinnoh and spread Team Rocket's name. Anyways, Dawn had basically realized what Team Rocket was trying to do, which was steal Pikachu, and she told them that what they were doing wasn't right, and if they wanted to catch a Pokemon, they should do it the normal, honest way. They battle against the Pokemon and catching it using a Pokeball. Although Jessie just ignores Dawn and says they can do whatever the fuck they want, as she sees Pikachu clinging to Dawn, wanting Dawn to protect it, having her Seviper go to use a wrap extremely tightly around Piplup to prevent it from protecting Pikachu. Dawn refused to let Team Rocket hurt her Pokemon though, and was even more against when Team Rocket declared that they were going to steal both Piplup and Pikachu. And Dawn had Piplup use a Bubble Beam while it was wrapped up straight into Seviper's face, which caused Seviper to lose its grip on Piplup, annoying Jessie, who claimed that she wasn't going to let Team Rocket be beat by a random-ass kid, and together with Meowth, ordered their Pokemon to attack together. Basically, all three Team Rocket members ordered Dustox, Cacnea, and Seviper all to use a tackle attack. Before the tackle attacks could actually hit though, Pikachu and Piplup teamed up, with Pikachu using Thunderbolt and Piplup using a Bubble Beam. The Thunderbolt sent Cacnea, Seviper, and Dustox blasting off, and the Bubble Beam sent Team Rocket, Mime Jr., and Wobbuffet blasting off, with Mime Jr. and Wobbuffet blasting off last, causing Dawn, Pikachu, and Piplup all to celebrate their victory, but Pikachu suddenly collapsed from exhaustion. So Dawn picked it up and asked if it was okay. After receiving no response, Dawn told Piplup that they should probably get Pikachu to a Pokemon Center fast, because he was injured as fuck. So they went to one, and Dawn explained the situation to Nurse Joy and her Chansey. So Nurse Joy and Chansey loaded Pikachu up on a stretcher, and Nurse Joy told Dawn that Pikachu would be alright after a good rest, so long as Dawn left everything to them, as Nurse Joy and Chansey wheeled Pikachu into the ER to heal him up, pleasing Dawn as she saw that Pikachu had been wrapped up in a nice warm blanket. Although Nurse Joy remarked that Pikachu was pretty exhausted, she could heal it, but she wondered what had made it so exhausted, so Dawn explained the situation. Once Nurse Joy and Chansey were gone, Dawn decided to go to a computer in the Pokemon Center and call her mother to tell her about her journey thus far. First, Dawn showed her mother her Piplup, explaining that she got her third Pokemon, pleasing her mother. Dawn then noticed her mother's Glameow sleeping on the couch beside her mother, but her mother changed the subject, asking if Dawn had caught any other Pokemon yet, and Dawn embarrassingly admitted that she hadn't yet, leading Dawn's mom to comfort her, saying that she would catch a Pokemon eventually. Piplup tried to act like it was super important and that Dawn didn't need any other Pokemon, so Dawn argued with Piplup, saying that she could still use other Pokemon, and tried to blame Piplup for its failure, which made Piplup angry because Dawn had said that it was okay for Piplup to fail. Johanna and her Glameow talked to each other, embarrassed by Dawn and Piplup's arguing, and decided that they should end the call, and Dawn agreed. So the call ended, and Dawn made a second call, this time to Professor Rowan at his lab, and she proceeded to tell Professor Rowan all about her encounter with Pikachu and Team Rocket. He thinks for a second, wondering why the Pikachu was lost, although before he could ask Dawn to give him more information, Dawn went into a little tangent about how Piplup had agreed to do Pokemon contests with her. Rowan was pleased by this and told Dawn to do her best in contests, but he finally was able to ask about the Pikachu again, and Dawn confirmed that she found out that it was actually owned by another trainer when she tried to catch it, and declared that even though she was planning to go to her first contest in Jubilife City, she didn't really care if they didn't get there in time. She was going to make priority number one to finding Pikachu's trainer, because she thought that was more important, because there would always be other contests to participate in. Rowan respected this, and hung up, not even bothering to question why the hell Dawn and Piplup were so injured, which unbeknownst to him was due to their fight earlier. Meanwhile, we then see Ash's Apom scouting and assisting Ash in his search for Pikachu as it looked on top of a tree, while Ash called for Pikachu. Unfortunately, neither Ash or Apom was making any progress. After looking around the entire forest from atop the tree, Apom still found nothing, and Ash called up to Apom, asking if it had found Pikachu or Team Rocket, but Apom dropped back to the ground, shaking its head, making Ash depressed as the two of them walked off together, trying to go to another area, with Ash wondering where Pikachu could have possibly ended up to. One minute he was chasing it, and the next he just lost it completely. He didn't know where it went. Not soon after, we find Officer Jenny riding along the road on her routine patrol, where she finds Ash, and stops and calls out to him, asking him if he needs a ride, because, he was just a random-ass kid trailing along. And he actually had taken a short break to sit in a nearby field, because he was so depressed about not having Pikachu. So, yeah, Officer Jenny was pretty worried when she just saw a random-ass kid and his Apom sitting in the field. Ash confirmed that he needed a ride, and explained his situation regarding Pikachu to Officer Jenny. So, once Officer Jenny had heard about the situation, she decided that she would take Ash to Professor Rowan's lab in Sandgem Town, since Professor Rowan, being smart and all, may be able to help him find Pikachu. Ash agreed, and determinedly sat on Officer Jenny's motorcycle with Apom until they arrived back at the lab, where Professor Rowan greeted Ash for the first time. Professor Rowan actually knew who Ash was, and gave him Apom's Pokeball, telling him that he received it from Professor Oak earlier that day, because, remember, Professor Oak had sent Apom's Pokeball to Professor Rowan, so, of course, Rowan would know who Ash was. Ash then inquires about his Pikachu, and if Rowan had seen it, explaining that it was missing. So, Rowan explained that he had actually received a call from a trainer named Dawn that had just started out on her journey, who ended up getting into a fight with a group called Team Rocket, and rescued Pikachu. Ash was shocked, and asked if that was really true, and Rowan confirmed this, saying that Dawn probably took Pikachu to the Pokemon Center and healed it up, since she called from the Pokemon Center. So, Ash, with Apom on his shoulder, declared that they should phone the Pokemon Center to get in contact with Dawn, so Ash could get Pikachu back. However, when Rowan and Ash phoned Nurse Joy at the local Pokemon Center that was nearby, Nurse Joy unfortunately reveals that Dawn had already left the Pokemon Center to try and find Pikachu's trainer. Hearing this, Ash said goodbye to Nurse Joy, and he and Rowan hung up. Then, Ash said goodbye to Rowan, declaring that he was going to go to the Pokemon Center and try and catch up with Dawn from there in an attempt to retrieve his Pikachu. So, he said goodbye to Rowan and ran off. As Rowan watched while standing outside, hoping that Ash wouldn't get into too much trouble. Meanwhile, we then cut back to Team Rocket, who had been walking along a path in a forest, tired and super depressed at the recent blast-off, also injured from it as well. Not just physically, but mentally, since their egos had been bruised from the blast-off as well. Where were they going, you may ask? Well, they were trying their best to locate a phone booth of some sort so they could contact Giovanni, thinking that maybe that would lift their spirits if they got some encouragement from him or something. And they also thought that, they should report the fact that they were in Sinnoh to him. But James was instantly cheered up, letting out a cry of surprise as he pointed out a rather grand-looking mansion in the distance that he immediately ran over to, with Jessie, Meowth, Wobbuffet, and Mime Jr. following closely behind until they all stopped at the gates of the mansion, with James immediately spotting something on the gates, a crudely looking drawing of what appeared to be himself, someone else, and a strange green Pokemon, which led James to confirm what he thought, that this mansion was his family's second summer cottage, where he would go when the first one needed to be cleaned. Since it was very much legal for James to go inside this place, since his family owned it, Meowth excitedly opened the gates, and all three of the Team Rocket trio entered the mansion, with Wobbuffet and Mime Jr. following, with everyone excited at finding such a great place. As soon as everyone walks in, they immediately find the living room and relax in there. Although they did have to clean up the place a bit first, because it hadn't been used in a while, so all the furniture was covered and the curtains were closed. So James opened the curtains, and Jessie, Meowth, Wobbuffet, and Mime Jr. took all the covers off the furniture, and Jessie just stood in awe at how beautiful the place was, while Wobbuffet, Meowth, and Mime Jr. played on the couches. James then entered what appeared to be his old playroom and found a box holding his first ever bottle cap collection that he still had to this day. James had called out for Jessie to come see the box, And James was really excited at the thought of what could have been inside, but he was blown away at the fact that there was his first bottle cap collection. He didn't expect something that good, but Jessie, on the other hand, was disappointed because she expected something more valuable inside the box that belonged to a rich kid. James then noticed a Pokeball along with the bottle caps, and Jessie asked if it was actually his, with James confirming that it was, and saying that the Pokemon that was on the little sign thing on the gate was inside this Pokeball. And he let out this Pokemon from said Pokeball, revealing a Carnivine. And as James immediately recalled all the great memories he had playing with Carnivine as a kid, it started to both hug him and jump down on his head in affection, reminding James very much of his old Victory Bell. Which even Jessie, Meowth, Wobbuffet, and Mime Jr. were freaked out by, even though Jessie and all of them weren't even the ones being affected by Carnivine's hugging and biting. Jessie then got a little embarrassed as her stomach started to grumble, and she asked James if there was any food. James confirmed that there was at least ingredients, but his old butler, Mr. Cheeves, should still be around to prepare something for Team Rocket to eat. And James said this while still being chomped on by Carnivine. Jessie questioned how a butler could still be around if the place seemed deserted when they came in, but James explained that the butler was only supposed to do things if James specifically told him. So if he didn't specifically tell Mr. Cheeves to keep looking after the place, then he would have just let it rot. Sure enough, James's butler, Mr. Cheeves, was still in the mansion, and once James phoned his butler on his phone that he found in the mansion, he sat all of Team Rocket down to a delicious meal that he prepared, with countless courses. James thanked Mr. Cheeves for doing this, as Mr. Cheeves just said that he was very glad to have James back, and he had actually contacted James's parents, and they, along with Jezebel, were flying out the next day to come see James here at the mansion, much to James's horror. Since Jezebel was still technically his bride-to-be, even though he definitely didn't want that. And James had a little vision of him potentially being forced to marry Jezebel, and the thought of marrying Jezebel sent James into a state of depression. Meanwhile, Meowth had just finished eating, and was depressed as hell, because he wanted more food, but even Mr. Cheeves couldn't cook food that fast. So Meowth, along with Mime Jr. and Wobbuffet, decided to occupy themselves by playing some video games connected to the TV in the mansion, while Jessie read a magazine. James quickly finished eating, and panically went up to the rest of his team and suggested that they leave the mansion and head out to continue their Team Rocket duties, as he really didn't want to bump into his parents or ex-fiancée Jezebel again. Jessie, Meowth, Wobbuffet, and Mime Jr. were startled at the idea of this at first, since they wanted to stay at this great mansion, but when James told them that if Jezebel and his parents would arrive and make him marry Jezebel, then Team Rocket would be over. And this made Jessie, Meowth, Wobbuffet, and Mime Jr. panic even more, so they saw James's point and agreed to leave the mansion with him and return to their Team Rocket thieving duties. Before Team Rocket actually left the mansion, though, Meowth suggested that they call Giovanni and let him know that they were in Sinnoh, since they were looking for a phone booth after all, and this mansion had a large TV screen that could be used to phone people. So Team Rocket agreed, and they called Giovanni up on the large video screen. And immediately upon seeing Giovanni on screen, Team Rocket all bow. Jessie was the one to inform Giovanni that they had arrived in the Sinnoh region and planned to continue their duties there, spreading Team Rocket's word all throughout Sinnoh and conquering it. Just like what they did with the Hoenn region, although James reminded Jessie that they didn't conquer the Hoenn region, but Jessie quickly shut him up, so Giovanni didn't hear. Giovanni claimed that he already knew things didn't go too well for Team Rocket and Hoenn, though, but regardless, he still allowed Team Rocket to continue their duties in Sinnoh, since he currently had no other agents in Sinnoh, and it was better to have some agents there than none, and he'd also been wanting to set up a Team Rocket base in the Sinnoh region for a long time, although he didn't have much faith in Team Rocket as he ended the video call. Jessie, James, and Meowth were pleased to receive the go-ahead from Giovanni, and proceeded to cheer along with Wobbuffet and Mime Jr., declaring that maybe, as a base, they could set up a new summer cottage. Back in the Kanto region, where Giovanni was, he was having trouble remembering the conversation that he just had with Jessie and James, because he had other matters to attend to, so he clearly didn't have much faith in them. Meanwhile, we then see Professor Rowan in his lab, who assumed that Dawn must have made it to the next town already, so he called up that Pokemon Center, where Dawn was, with Piplup and Pikachu, and Nurse Joy informed Dawn that she had a call, so she answered it, and she was now talking to Professor Rowan, so Professor Rowan informed her to keep an eye out for a young man named Ash, who was Pikachu's trainer, who was heading her way in order to retrieve Pikachu. Dawn promised that she would keep an eye out, and would in fact go to meet him. So she hung up on Rowan and told Pikachu that they were going to reunite with its trainer Ash as soon as possible. And she did so by heading back to Route 202, which connected this town and the last, assuming that Ash would have been at there by that point. So, as Dawn, Piplup, and Pikachu run to Route 202, Dawn teases Pikachu, saying that it would have been a lot faster to get there with her bike, leaving Pikachu to embarrassingly scratch his head, feeling guilty. Meanwhile, Ash and Acorn were running along a path by Route 202, almost at the same place where Dawn was, when a truck suddenly pulled up alongside them. Stopping, as, much to Ash's surprise, Brock jumps out of the truck and greets him, and Ash greets him back. Brock then reveals that he was not the driver of the truck, as he introduces Ash to the actual driver, Claudina. Claudina asks Brock if Ash was the guy Brock was looking for, and Brock said that it was, and thanks her for driving him. Claudina greets Ash, and Ash greets her back, while Brock quickly pulls Ash aside and whispers to him, explaining that he met her in Pier City, and they had been on the road together. Becoming pretty close to the point where Brock actually believed he had a shot with such a hot girl for once, and he actually revealed to Ash that he planned to have Claudia join their group, and he planned to rejoin Ash's group. That's why he had Claudia drive them to Ash, so that the three of them could go on an adventure together. However, much to Brock's dismay, his heart was broken when Claudia suddenly received a call from her boyfriend and answered it, started talking to him. Brock's fantasies with Claudia were now ended, as he complained So Claudia apologized for the whole situation, thanking Brock for the lunch and dinner that he prepared for her. Claudia then drives off in her truck, leaving Brock to rant about how he always got his heart broken. Although, after his rant, which annoyed Ash and Apom, and after he bawled his eyes out for a little bit, Brock decided to put his broken heart aside and cheer himself up by going on a journey with Ash and Pikachu yet again. Although, it was then that Brock realized that Pikachu was missing, and he asked what happened. Ash explained what happened to Brock, leaving Brock shocked that Team Rocket still had refused to give up, because they were the ones that caused Ash and Pikachu to be separated. Ash then reveals that Professor Rowan had actually gave him a map that had the location of the Pokemon Center where Dawn should have been marked on it. So, Ash and Brock decided to go with Apom through the forest to try and reach the center to retrieve Pikachu, not knowing that Dawn had already left the center by this point. Brock got a little bored while walking, so he decided to fantasize about meeting Nurse Joy at the Pokemon Center. Apom got a little bored while walking, so he decided to swing through some trees, but he was stopped when it eventually crashed into a nearby Starly, who was flying atop the trees. The Starly was injured from Apom bashing into it, so the Starly was angry and started to fight Apom, and Apom started to fight back, leading Ash to tell Apom to cut it out and stop fighting, knowing that the fight was Apom's fault. Brock didn't really care about the fight though. He was more intrigued to see the new Sinnoh Pokemon that he hadn't seen before, so he had Ash check his Pokedex to find out more about it, with the two of them learning that it was a Starly. Brock then suggested that Ash catch the Starly so they could use it to do an aerial search for Pikachu or the Pokemon Center. And Ash agreed and told Apom to use Swift to attack the Starly, with Apom backing away to do so to get a clear shot, since Swift was a longer range move, and the Swift hit Starly right on the nose, although Starly used a gust to blow the remaining Swift stars away. Hell, Ash and Brock thought they were going to be blown away by the attack, but much to Ash's joy, Apom was standing his ground, refusing to get blown away, impressing Ash as he told Apom to use a Focus Punch next. And Apom started to charge up the Focus Punch, but before Apom could actually get the attack off, Starly used a quick attack to knock Apom down, as the quick attack hit Apom right in the chest. However, even though Starly was able to follow up by hitting Apom with several wing attacks, Apom did manage to finally land its Focus Punch, injuring Starly enough so that Ash had the opportunity to throw his Pokeball, having the perfect chance. So, the Pokeball hit Starly straight in the face, and after shaking a few times, the ball successfully caught Starly, leading Ash to celebrate his new capture, holding it up in the air. But he soon becomes depressed when he realizes that his capture celebrations weren't nearly as fun when he didn't have Pikachu to celebrate with him. And he wished that Pikachu could have been with him to see the capture, although Brock comforted Ash, reminding him that the reason why he caught Starly in the first place was to help him find Pikachu anyways. Ash remembered this and sent out to Starly, telling it to start an aerial search for Pikachu, and Starly did so, as Brock and Ash followed it down Route 202. Meanwhile, Dawn, Piplup, and Pikachu were continuing their search for Ash, heading down the opposite end of Route 202, with both of them bound to meet up with each other. Meanwhile, another trainer with an Elekid had been watching Ash catch Starly, and remarked that he wouldn't even bother with a Pokemon that was that easy to catch. He would not bother using that one. So it seemed like he was quite a dick to weak Pokemon. Well, I guess we'll see more of him next episode, because the episode ended with Brock, Ash, Dawn, and this new trainer all about to cross paths on Route 202.